Left Hand of Darkness. Here we go. Sorry I'm late. I'm like 2 minutes late. But here I am. So I'm ready for any kinds of questions. Francisco, how very Francisco of you to be like, how is everyone? So caring, so curious. I'm doing pretty great today. I went on a great bike ride this afternoon with Mr. Dinger. Exercise, fresh air. It was just wonderful. So I'm ready for any questions that are coming my way. And without questions, I don't know where this is going to go. What am I going to do? I suppose I could just talk about the ways that the novel is great and important. You'll find that as soon as I am asked a question, I'll kind of like brighten up and be a lot more focused in my communication. This is a novel that asks really big questions. So I guess we could talk about what are the questions that the novel asks. One of the questions that the novel asks is like, what might be the next step for government? It asks big questions about government's bad, government's good. I think it's very powerful the way that the people of Karhide and their culture and politics are communicated complexly, so that it's not just one thing or the other. You know, in some ways, their culture is kind of detestable, and in some ways they're absolutely heroic and really beautiful. You know, so I'm talking about the Karhiders. I'm talking about like the King Argoven. I thought it was very powerful at the end when I think we gained an appreciation through the course of the novel for Shifgrathor, and what that means. And I think, upon thinking about it, that there's some key moments when Estraven and Genly Ai are together and on their quest, on their journey across. And there are certain times when Estraven, and we got to see, because of the way that the narration includes perspectives from both Estraven and from Genly Ai, we get to see the question posed in both ways. But the question was, what's up with Genly like not being able to cry, And I think that he said it must be hard for Estraven to understand this male pride thing. Later he said he was afraid to cry. What was my favorite myth or historical chapter in the book? I mean, you know what? I think, gosh, the creation was very good. I'm trying to reread and look at my notes for that particular one. It was towards the end, which I just reread today. So I reread the book in the last 3 to 5 days. So my thoughts are evolving. Homecoming. I should have my notes out in front of me with all my little chapters and what they're doing. It's very short. So this must be it. The first to wake. Yeah, and Orgota. I apologize if I'm saying the names of different things wrong. I haven't heard them all spoken from the mouth of Ursula K herself. So I just do with my best phonics. I try to name them as I see them, pronounce them. So I like the Orgota creation myth. I like, I don't know, what can I say about that's useful? I suppose I could read a bit. In the beginning, there was nothing but ice and the sun. Over many years, the sun shining melted a great crevasse in the ice. In the sides of this crevasse were great shapes of ice, and there was no bottom to it. Drops of water melted from the ice shapes in the sides of the chasm and fell down and down. One of the ice shapes said, "I bleed." Another of the ice shapes said, "I weep." The third one said, "I sweat." So what I like about this particular creation myth is that it goes way back. It goes way back to the beginning. And when you think about those two cultures and how vividly and carefully and almost like I don't know, I said with reverence, it's like she cares and values the different cultural trajectories of the people of Karhide and the people of Argoda. And so it's with great care and respect that she offers without comment those myths, and then it's for us as readers to tie those into our understanding of the larger of the narrative, which is again just a piece of the Hainish chronicles. It's just and for me, full disclosure, this is the only one I've read. I've read parts of other ones, but I haven't had the time. And I mean, haven't so I'm not coming at I'm coming to this novel from the perspective of someone who is sees great value in the I mean, in the beauty of her language. I've read all of the Wizard of Earthsea novels. I read those aloud to my children, and they were like, some of the most magical moments that I've been able to enjoy as a parent. And I think it's because of the lyricism in her language, which is it's not it's not easily accessible. I think that you can make criticisms of the way that she writes because it's not always. I think that she puts the verbal lyricism above clarity at certain points. How does it sound? How does it sound? And so she's a poet who's writing in prose about very deep existential issues, and that's one of the great things about the Wizard of Earthsea is that like I read that to my children when they were 8, 10, 7. And like we were like reading two different novels. I was reading something aloud to them and they were like, "Oh, he's on a boat. Where's he going to go?" And I was like, on the inside I'm like, "The shadow is so real. We all have shadow." It comes from him. It's his own ambition. Oh my gosh. The metaphor has stepped into the world. This weight that we all carry has stepped into the world and now is pursuing him, and is so powerful and so relentless in that novel. And then I just read the rest of them because the language, that's what she does with her language. It's beautiful. I have to keep up here. Oh, I was going to ask you if you read. Yeah, I'm sure that I will someday. And maybe it's just that last week I did a live stream and I was talking about Faulkner quite a bit, and Faulkner is just so much work. It's just gonna be work reading Faulkner, and there's value in it, but it's still work. And so maybe that's where I am with the rest of the Hainish novels. I just haven't had a situation lately where the decks of my life have been clear enough that I'm like, okay, now I'm going to choose to do some work and spend some more time with Ursula K. LeGuin. It's always time well spent, but it's also work. Okay, so all right. Juan says before Estraven Kamikaze. Let's be maybe a little bit more respectful to Estraven Kamikazes. Do you think that Genly's love was romantic? Did he mean it to be that way? Well, they definitely. Ursula K flirts with that possibility, but it's very clear, and he does clearly articulate how close they got when Estraven was in Kemmer, and he was, and that's something that Cecilia brought up in her wonderful, and very generous exploration of her interpretation of the novel. I said that the key element of this novel is really about power, and it's about it's about I guess ideologies, and the way that those ideologies could be infused with like biological gender sexual imperatives, and like that's kind of one way to read the novel. But Cecilia said that, and correctly so, another great way to read the novel is about this relationship, that this is about a relationship from two people from two worlds, not as a metaphor, from two worlds who couldn't have been more different. And as they get closer and they're able to see each other as they are, it's like the scales fall away from their perceptions of each other, and they have this friendship and this love that, what would it have been like? I think that from the Githenian perspective, if they had had a romantic moment together in Kemmer, that would have been okay. It would have been fine. They do not seem as a culture to have all the hangups, particularly that exist kind of in Western, in modern Western, conceptions of love and romance. It seems like a lot more free and open and free of just like I don't know, obsessions about purity and things like that. It seems like they accept themselves. They accept that, hey, 3 days a month, there's this thing I got to do, and I'm gonna do it, and then we're gonna move on. But Estraven vowed Kemmering, and that was real. Even though his partner left, there was some, and so it would have been a little bit surprising from Estraven's perspective for that. And then for Genly, I think he was just getting his mind wrapped around like who Estraven is, like what is this Githenian person who is not man, who is not woman. And I think that he had the wisdom in himself to be like, I need to understand. I think we're in a good place right now, and like the closeness that was very real. It was. I think the novel was much better for nothing openly romantic happening between the two of them. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, you are a goat. Okay. That's what I like to hear. I don't know what all those words mean, but I do appreciate it. I thought, yeah, we can talk about Persepolis. If you want to ask a question about Persepolis, we can do that a little bit later. Yeah, the deep friendship, and so then we look at the novel and we say, what's its value? And I think it's about bridging worlds. You look at the ecumen, and I wish we had an ecumen. We don't have an ecumen on Earth. We have a bunch of competing factions that at different times they operate along the continuum of ruthless abuse of power to attempted experiments in democracy. And I think we go back and forth, and at different times we can be very proud of the government we have, the government, in the United States that is supposed to be of the people and from the people, the government that we create. But, and we see it in this novel too, the, I don't want to call it barriers, but the challenges that like free thinking people and democracy have. Information is so important, and you can see what the Orgoda do, the Orgoreyn, those people, the communists, what they do with information, and the power of information, and the power of misinformation and disinformation. I think that like I see that much more clearly now than I did 10 years ago. Like I didn't perceive how fragile our information economy was and how vulnerable to contagion. Contagion is like infection. Being infected with mistruths and disinformation, which is what I think we have now. I'm gonna catch up with questions. Marco says, it might have already been answered, but what are important things to keep in mind from the journey? I think the journey is that at different times we can see from their perspectives how they misread each other. And so that is that's important and valuable, especially when we see the sacrifice that Estraven made at the end of the novel. That was spoiler alert, retroactive. This, I think I said somewhere like, I'm trying to do this for people who've read the novel. So when we get to the end, we see the point that they have arrived at. And so, and Estraven is just such a great character because he he betrayed his people for mankind, and like the degree to which he was misunderstood because of the problems of perception and the problems of perceiving the other. We don't have mind speech. Was that the ultimate breakthrough for Genly? That's an important thing that happens out on the ice. There's also a lot of beautiful landscape imagery that happens out on the ice that's very powerful. Um, Gender, journey, yeah, gender is important. So I want you to be able to think deeply about what understanding of gender this novel offers, and so you'll have 90 minutes to look through your novel and find those key moments in the novel where gender is very clearly articulated one way or the other, and then you can use that to extract ultimately what version of gender does Ursula K. LeGuin offer the reader. And if I were to posit, my understanding of what gender means in this novel, I don't know. We have like, well, Genly says it, and so I guess the question might be like, to what extent do you think this is true? Genly says, in trying to explain what gender is, or am I using even the right word? Even should I be using the word biological sex traits? I'm not sure which word I should be using. Biology, gender, and I think gender is the word. Well, actually, no, because he's talking about birth. So he's saying, so it's not birth; it's biological, your biological sex traits. What is the most important thing in determining the shape of your life? Do you think that is true? Do you think that is true in this novel? Do you think that is part of a truth, that part of the truth that that Ursula K. Le Guin is trying to communicate in the novel? Or is the novel really designed to complicate that understanding? Because that was Genly speaking, from a time and place, but ultimately is the idea to move beyond that, to a more flexible understanding of gender dynamics, gender roles, and and maybe in having Estraven be such a dynamic, powerful character who wasn't limited to one gender, to one, or wasn't burdened really with the weight of a gender identity. Maybe that's something to consider as well. Maybe that's what she's trying to communicate, so that we can have an understanding of the dynamics and maybe the weight and the place. Because the novel is designed to ask questions. It's designed is the novels. I think she says in her introduction, it's designed to say, look at that, look right there. Have you thought about that? That's what it's for. Francisco, oh yeah, that's a question. Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know what else to do other than flip through this book here and find some things that let's see here. Hmm. Mm. And then she says just wonderful things about humans in this novel. So I think that there's clearly like a very big-hearted characterization of humans, of human strengths and weaknesses and frailties, and all of our, so what does this novel say about humans? What are the key passages where there's like some kind of insight about humans? Like, and she doesn't tell you when she's going to say something important. You have to pick out those important moments, So here we have page 182 and 183, talking about when when Genly was on the transport to the work farm, to the death camp that he was going to, and there were two people who were suffering more than the others visibly. They were in, they were in pain. They were cold. You could tell. And he was one of them because his body was not suited for this climate. And he said, these people didn't know each other, but like they were just together in this terrible situation, naked of all things. They had a dead body that was just kind of like sitting near the door. And then there's this paragraph that there was kindness. I and certain others, an old man and one with a bad cough, were recognized as being least resistant to the cold. And each night we were at the center of the group, the entity of 25, where it was warmest. We did not struggle for the warm place. We simply were in it each night. It is a terrible thing, this kindness that human beings do not lose. Terrible, because when we are finally naked in the dark and cold, it is all we have. We who are so rich, so full of strength, we end up with that small change. We have nothing else to give. I read stuff like that, and I'm just like, those are diamonds. That's a diamond level characterization of humanity. And so the word for humanity and the word we see throughout this novel that I would draw on to describe the people of Karhide, the people of Orgoda, all of it is like great and terrible. Great and terrible. And so I think that's one aspect of the weight of this book, is the weight of the great and terrible. You believe the real reason Argiven didn't accept Genly's proposal from a fear of Estraven. Which proposal? Real reason Argiven. Oh, was a fear of Estraven? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's tough to say. I think it was by then Tybe had outmaneuvered. So there's like political maneuvering in this novel that's really good. And I think that's really, really accurate. The Orgoda is like bureaucracy out of control, and factions in U.S. politics or any politics are very powerful. So why did the Orgoda not take advantage? I don't think they could do anything with this tech. Like they had it, but I don't think they could do anything with it. It was an Ansible, and I think in order to actually send a message, Genly had to like tweak some dials. So like I think it was, to them, it was like a typewriter to nowhere. And I think that that's all that they had, at least the Orgoda had. The Karhiders had like his little shuttle, his little rocket shuttle. But again, I don't know what they could do with it. Yeah. So politics, humanity. The little like the Orgoda food was awful. The Orgoda culture was, they were moving towards that mechanization. They were moving towards like maybe like a more modern, in many senses, they were a more modern culture than the Karhiders with their level of bureaucracy. And it was communist. The government guaranteed everybody a job, and Karhide was just like crazy. It was a crazy den of life and lies and suffering, and but like really good food and really caring, generous people, that were more authentic, maybe like a more authentic culture that was less constrained. The amount of control, so like the government of Orgoda was kind of like fascist. They had a secret police that was like very effective in controlling information. They did a lot of stuff. Let's see. Is loyalty a big pressure? Yeah, loyalty is huge. Finding loyalty, and then there's that irony that like Estraven was the one person who risked everything in his belief that Genly was telling the truth, that he was legit, and that this decision to join the Ecumen was what the planet needed. Estraven sacrificed everything to act on that in his very intelligent, but also like tenacious way. And Estraven was the one guy that Genly couldn't trust. He couldn't trust. And part of that is that cultural like Schriftgruthor, which, you know, for us, for readers, is, you know, one of the things that's so masterful about the novel is that we mirrored that journey that they went through. So we don't know. We don't know what things mean. We don't understand why Estraven invites him to his house, and then the next minute the king is, you know, we don't understand why those things are happening, and it's kind of confusing and frustrating. But then we get into it, and by the end, hopefully, you felt something very powerful at the very end, when Estraven sacrificed himself, and, you know, even the continuing, like when Genly was finally reunited with humans that were like him, you know, and he got to hear female voices and male voices, and like recognize that it's pretty special. A very, very long time ago, I spent some time in Central America by myself, and I fell in with a bunch of Canadians and Israelis and Costa Ricans and I don't know, other people, and I didn't hang out with anybody from the United States for like a while, you know, for like 2 weeks, you know, which is a long time when you're on vacation, just like surfing and doing nothing. You're just like talk to people all day and just sit around on the beach. And then when I finally did like run into a group of Americans from California, it was really fun because it was like I was back home. And even though like I'm not from California, but like we thought about things the same way. We kind of like we had like the same agenda for things. We were like, okay, let's have a picnic on the beach. Who's gonna bring what? Okay, all right, I'm gonna bring the dessert. Okay, you bring dessert. What are you gonna bring? You know, and it was like this, you know, I don't know. It was really special, and it helped me appreciate my culture and people in a really special way. It's a very special memory I have, and so seeing Genly reconnect with the people of his culture after his journey was really special too. Yes, love these people. Yes, all of that. Yes, he did that. Yes. All right, that's it. I think that's it for our time together. Thank you for being here. I appreciated it. It was great. And some of you I'll see tomorrow. And some of you I will see the next time that we do something like this. So I'm going to stop talking about Left Hand of Darkness. But if there is anybody here who wants to ask a question about anything else, I'll answer it. But I'm going to like wait 20 seconds. Drink my tea while I do that. All right. Adios, friends.